Okay, so in econometrics we deal, briefly I just want to touch on the different data sets. Metric data sets that we deal with. So first is going to be cross-sectional. This is a lot of what we've been doing, like what you do in intro to statistics is cross-sectional data that we then turn into some sort of ordinary least squares function. So cross-sectional could be thought of as like it's multiple things like multiple objects at the same point in time. So, like our pet example is an example of this. We just say, okay, we've got various pet owners. The different pet owners, because they're different, that's what is implied by multiple things, multiple objects. And we look at them at the same point in time. So we would say on such and such a day, there were this many accidents with this many pets being owned. And so we would just take like one snapshot in time and then just kind of run with that. So that's sort of your basic data stuff and that's what we deal with a lot in statistics. But there are different ways, there are different panel sets and there are different styles. So moving on from that, we also have time series in econometrics. And in time series, typically our concern here is that it's actually one object through time. So it's about as opposite in the logic as you can get from the cross-sectional. We're flipping everything on our head. So instead of a single point in time, it's the key is movement through time, and instead of multiple objects, we have one object. So a good example of this would be something like we are concerned about the U.S. GDP, and you can have multiple data. So I know in statistics we use a lot of just one input, one output, but you can have, the point of econometrics is really going to be, and you're going to see this a lot as we kind of move along, that especially once we get past deriving our beta coefficients, that a lot of this is, we have to be concerned with multiple betas inputs causing something. And so US GDP, you might think of that too as like the Y. So that's the output. And then we'd say we have inflation and unemployment. The key here would be we'd have year. So US GDP and then inflation, and then US inflation and US unemployment. So the years would be the only thing that changes, but it would be one fixed thing, and that's the US. So it's not randomized in the same way that, like, if we were randomizing multiple pet owners, we'd be like, okay, well, we're just going to randomly select these pet owners and then kind of test that day, how many nests do you have in your house today from your pets? How many pets do you have? And then we get that information and sort of codify it in that table for that time. But there's multiple objects, i.e. there's multiple pet owners, and or the object of concern is specifically how much does each pet owner own in terms of pets. And so, whereas this US GDP is the object, and yes, the object can be variable itself, but it is a singular object. So it's not saying, it's US, Japan, and Mexico and all these other, no, it's just the US. So that portion of it is not randomized. So we're actually taking something that's more like, and I don't want to say it's population data, because the way that they survey all of this information is still like an accumulated sample. But when we're calling this aggregated sample the US, that's the data we're manipulating with. It's because it's just the US is this lone entity that we're concerned with. But we would look at it over time. So starting in 2020, perhaps we go through, perhaps this is a little bit in the future here, all the way through 2030. And so we do like a decade's worth of data, and we have data for each year on those. And perhaps we just, again, we only take them annually. But the takeaway from this is, yes, no, it's one object through time. Now, there's another way to sort of consider, or another data thing to consider here. So we got two more, and then this video will be wrapped up on. But two more styles of data. There's what we call pooled cross-sectional data. So pooled, and we'll just say CS, cross-sectional. And that is now where we take cross-sectional, but we do it through time. So it's still randomized, so you're just grabbing random samples. And the main crux of this that distincts this from other things that I want you to take away from this is not just that we've taken the cross-section and now we're running it through time. It's that the people surveyed in a different time are different people than the people surveyed at one point in time. So the biggest thing to say is, okay, in 2020, we surveyed Mary, Alice, Bob, Gary, and Larry in 2020, and how many pets they own. So we took these guys and said, okay, how many pets do you own, and how many messes do they make? But we have multiple parties, just like we did in cross-sectional. But now we have this pool in 2020, where these were the random ones we had selected for 2020. We're going to do literally the same thing in 2021, but this time it's, let's say, Juan, Adam, Ava, and Ty. And so now we have different pet owners that we randomly selected. We're measuring the same stuff. Our ends are equivalent, so we're taking equivalent ends of sample sizes. But now we're not going back and we're not looking at the same people as we roll over. And so it's multiple party and it's random. That's the key. Not the same. Not the same. Ty is not Larry. Larry is not Ty. So that is the key takeaway for the pooled stuff. But essentially, it's basically just exactly cross-sectional, other than we're doing multiple randomizations through time. And so we have different time increments for that. And so it's sort of like a little bit of a hybrid now, where we're taking one element out of time series and applying it, but still retaining most of cross-sectional. And then panel data is even a little different, and it's sort of it's just if time series was more sophisticated, I guess is the way to put it. So think back, I was just saying how, okay, in time series we're just concerned with United States. Now we're not. Now we say U.S. GDP, inflation, and so, yeah, we might line this up. They're the same throughout, and actually we'll do this way. So it's GDP, inflation, and unemployment. So now that we go through time, it's US. And this will be like the 2020 block. Japan, Mexico, South Korea, and so on and so forth. But then we do the repeat of that. We repeat all of these again for 2021 and 2022. Or if you're looking at a month-to-month, some sort of month-to-month index, or quarterly index, like GDP is quarterly, and if we were just isolating GDPs, and we were looking at this quarterly, then we would be, then it would be just first quarter 2020 and so on and so forth. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of give you guys an introduction on what the different data is doing. Hopefully that helps you kind of, get a sense. These are kind of the four main ones. I mean, there's others, but these are the main ones that are talked about in undergrad settings, at least as has been my experience. So keep that in mind, and I will see you next time.